enjoy drawing cards? Do you want to create a big fuck off board like this? Do you want to just swing at your opponents and have to worry about any blockers? Then Liquid People may be the deck for you.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting.
Hello everyone, my name is Londric, the man known for crashing out after going against one too many 5-color stall players. Today, I want to show you guys Liquid People, a deck that has a lot of history in this game. Once being a monster of a deck that has stood the test of time and still saw lots of results even to a few months ago. But with the release of Players Chronicles 2, there is a new wave of support that instantaneously made this deck a top contender not only in ND, but shot up its viability in the AD format, where it has access to all of its old support, which makes it a really huge meta threat. Liquid People as a deck is not only simple to use, but it's actually one of the cheapest meta decks you currently use in the ND format, and still has room to grow as your community learns new text for it. I can honestly recommend any new player to try out, but all that, I should actually explain how the deck works. You see, the main game plan of a deck is actually build a whiteboard Liquid Peoples over the course of the first few turns, discounting play costs, drawing cards, and deep searching, which once you have a wind-up board, you can simply play your main boss monster, Crystal Drylancer. No, I'm not going to say the full name, it's way too long. Alright, get over it. Drylancer's effects are Galaxy Vortex Evolution, 3 Liquid People. This usually means that if you want to summon them, you need to have 3 Liquid People on the field to put under this card. His second effect is Sympathy Liquid People. This is the reason why in the first few turns we're trying to build a whiteboard of small creatures, since each one will actually discount Drylancer's mana cost by 1. But remember, it cannot go less than 1. He also can't be blocked, so your opponent can't just turtle up with blockers to help him block this triple breaker swing. As well, when he enters the battle zone, you get to put an Aqua Core from outside the game into the battle zone. So while you are losing 3 bodies to play this guy, you replace one of them with an Aqua Guard to help make up the difference. And honestly, for his last and absolute nuts effect, Meteor Burn. Whenever this attacks, you may put 3 cards under this creature into your graveyard. If you do, you get to put a Crystal Swaylancer from outside the game on top of your each other Liquid People. Okay, so with this effect, you essentially turn all your tiny Liquid Peoples into gigantic beat sticks that break 3 shields each. They can't be blocked, so unless you have some major shield triggers, once you get this card off, they lose the game on the spot. Of course, this deck would not be good if we can't reliably get a wide board to help discount Drylancer in the first place. So let me showcase some of the most important pieces you should be playing during the early turns of the game. One of our most important early game creatures is Aqua Flagger. Being 2 mana, this creature simply makes it to where Liquid People cost 1 less to summon. This card really helps us ramp out other creatures, and the fun thing is that card will actually make it to where Drylancer will cost 2 less, since not only are you getting the sympathy discount, but the effect of Flagger is also still in effect. Another of our early game cards that are really good to play is Java Kid Aqua Boy. This card is really simple. Once you enter this battle zone, check the top card of your deck. If it has Liquid People trait, add to your hand. Otherwise, you play into the graveyard instead. With this card, you actually start cycling through your deck while also creating board presence while trying to find Drylancer. This card, I would say, is actually our main card draw engine, Aqua Clown Loopy, which costs 4 mana. Since she enters the field, you can actually play an Aqua card from outside the game onto the battle zone. But the more important effect is that during your turn, when the second creature enters the battle zone, you get to draw a card. Now, while this only says once per turn, oftentimes you're playing multiple creatures in a single turn, so this will draw more and more cards over time, especially if you're to combo this with Java Kid. This last card we typically will hardcast during the early game is Aqua Informer, a 3 mana creature that once she hits the battle zone, you get to look to the top 4 cards of your deck and add a Liquid People or a Hunter from among them and put it into your hand, and place the rest of the bottom of the deck in a random order. The Hunter part doesn't really matter most of the time. What we're looking for is Liquid People, honestly. Informer allows us to dig deeper into the deck to find key pieces, or you can actually end up chaining multiple Informers together to grab multiple cards, hopefully draping one of them, obviously because once again, he is our main boss monster. Another card that is often used with these kinds of decks is Energy Formation, which is a 4 mana spell that has sympathy for 4-hour creatures, and the real main effect is just drawing 2 cards. Yep, this is pretty much just probably great for water decks, but with how wide you can get the board, especially combined with the flaggers who have discount our creatures, you can easily get this down to 1 mana to keep drawing more and more to make sure you have a full hand. With the main draw engine explained, I want to explain some more of the, I would guess to call them defensive options. But there are only really 3 main ones in the archetype during the ND format. The first one being Aqua Genius. This 5-mana creature has 2 effects. The first one being a handguard effect, so if this card is to be forcibly discarded from your hand by your opponent's effect, you actually get to play for free instead, which not only makes them wasted cards essentially, but still allows you to board presence at the same time, once again discounting Drylancer. Once she hits the field, she checks the first 3 cards of your deck, and you will add all Liquid People or Hunters from them to your hand, and the rest will go to the bottom of the deck once again. Now, I know I said that we covered the main ways to draw cards, but most of the time you're actually trying to hardcast this, because not only is she 5 cost, but you rather keep her in your hand just in case if your opponent's using discard outlets, since those are always prevalent in the game, especially in ND.
I knew it! I knew I was gonna go for that! Get fucked!
Aqua Head Girl is a 3-mana creature with Strike Back, Liquid People, or Hunter. This essentially means that when your opponent breaks your shield and one of the cards added to your hand is Liquid People, you can actually discard to play this card out for free. As well as the main effect, once it hits the field, you have the choice of bouncing one of your opponent's creatures that has power 4k or less back to your hand. With this effect, even if you do not use the Strike Back effect during your opponent's turn, you can still actually bounce back Floodgates since most of them are around 4k power or less. The most popular ones being Defense Armor and Sentinel Brainwash. This will also bounce only combos if you are actually able to pull off the Strike Back ability, since the target immunity is only active during your turn. The last Liquid People that I'll be going over is Aqua Star Girl. She's a 7-mana creature that is also a shield trigger, so once again, very defensive. Once she hits the battle zone, for each of your Liquid People or Hunters you have on the field, choose one of your opponent's creatures and they can attack or block this turn. This is one of the few ways we can actually survive a full-blown rushdown strategy like Jokers or Bad Brand. You're never actually going to be using this card during your own turn, since if all things went well in the first place, we won't have to worry about blockers in the first place. Another option that you could run if you want to have more defensive triggers is to Ragnarok the Clock, which in my opinion is one of the best shield triggers in the game, with the simple ability that is when this enters the bound zone, skip the rest of the turn. Yep, once this hits the field, unless you have a way to negate it, the rest of the battle will be skipped. So I actually would recommend keeping this card in mind when you're trying to deck build. Now I already showcased our strengths, which is wide board, big attackers, can't be blocked, but some of our biggest weaknesses in this deck are shield triggers, especially ones that tap down the field, which are very plentiful in this current format and in the ED format. But to counter this, I recommend running Shuff Eureka as a tech, since once it hits the field, you can choose a number until the start of your next turn. Your opponent can't cast spells or attack with creatures at the same cost. Now, of course, with using this, you have to know your matchups well and hope that you call the right number. There's a reason why one of our weakest matchups we have is 5-color Soul, since a lot of their shield triggers are tap down effects and or are able to bounce back our creatures back to our hand, which allows them to style the game indefinitely. Another tech that is actually recommended is Refulu, which has the Revolution Change ability when attacking if you use any water or light creature. And once it hits the field, it automatically locks down all spells that cost 6 or less, which takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Another deck that gives us a hard time are Outreach decks, since if we don't pop off soon enough, they're actually able to destroy our entire board using only one card. And of course, they're able to use Ragnarok themselves to skip our turn and possibly win the game on the crackback. One final card that I want to bring up specifically for Endy is, I don't know how to say this, Gujin Maru. I really hope I said that right. I'm not going to say it again. Moving on. You see that this card costs a whopping 51 mana, but has a unique Genius Sympathy. It just means it discounts it by 10 instead of 1 for each water creature you have on the field. Once he does hit the field though, your opponent shuffles all their creatures into their deck. With the bonus effect that if you are able to shuffle 6 or more, you win the game automatically. Now, of course, we're not banking on actually winning with this effect, but this is more of a board wipe to help with other Swarm deck. Once again, using Jokers as an example. He also has the World Breaker effect, which means when he attacks shields, breaks all of them with no exception. The only thing I want to say is that while this card is rotating out really soon, so if you don't have this card already, I wouldn't suggest crafting them unless you plan on upgrading this deck to use in the AD format. Hey guys, remember I was talking about Gujin, Maru, and Shuff earlier, saying they're about to rotate out soon? Yeah, I mean they rotate out like this Thursday. Exactly this Thursday. Yeah, I wish I got this video like way sooner, but I got really busy. Anyway, without those cards, things are gonna get way harder for this deck. Gujin Maru will help us bounce back Floodgates, and Shuff also made it to where basically we can call certain numbers for spells, and we can easily get rid of those. So now we're really heavily relying on Refulu. Anyway, my bad. Bye-bye. Speaking about AD, remember how we brought up that spell-based shield triggers are really strong against this deck? That problem is completely gone in the ED format with the card Mercury, a 6-mana creature that has Galaxy Vortex, 3 Mecha Kings, Grand Devils, and or Liquid People, which is the same effect as Dry had earlier. Even has the Sympathy ability, but it's also including Great Mecha Kings and Grand Devils. That doesn't really matter, however. The reason why you run this card in AD is because of Meteor Burn 1. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, put a card under this creature into your graveyard. If you do, that spell loses its effect. Yep, with this card, you now have access to spell negation, which is one of the biggest weaknesses we had. You also gain the access to the Aqua Teacher engine, which makes it to where if you play a creature with no effects, you get to draw a card. Liquid People as a deck is really suited to those who want a more simple style Swarm deck that just continues to draw cards, make buys, and they will have a payoff with just a huge board of gigantic fuck-off beat sticks. But the deck will still fall to most stalled decks that are based on shield triggers. And some of the mentioned decks are actually able to wipe our board relatively easily. But another thing I really need you guys to keep an eye out for is hand destruction. Even though we do have a handguard, without it we're playing from the top deck, and this deck doesn't really do well in that kind of situation. So if decks start running more hand destruction or mill-based strategies start to catch on, it could be very troublesome for us. but I can truly recommend this deck to those that are first getting into the game, as well as more generic wall support that comes out in the future. I'm sure this deck will still be good for a long while, but since this deck is still going to wreck having an AD format, if you're willing to make the upgrades, I would definitely suggest doing so. I even used the rental deck version to climb live on stream, which is where I got the footage for this video, live on Logic on Twitch, and as well on this very YouTube channel. And also a little bit more of a shameful plug, please click like and subscribe on this channel. It really does mean a lot to me. As well as if you're interested, please check out the Discord. This is where you actually meet any questions that you have about the video, archetypes, and also make suggestions for future deck videos. With all of that, I want to say thank you all for watching and have a good one. Peace.